Hello, thank you for joining me for today's reflection. And the passage I've been looking at is from John's Gospel, chapter 19, verses 38 to 42. And this passage recounts the burial of Jesus. And it's a passage which has always presented to me as being shrouded in mystery and somewhat on the edges of things. I think partly because one of the main protagonists in the passage is Joseph of Arimathea, and along with Nicodemus, of course, two people who perhaps found themselves in ambiguous situations and who we don't see maybe as being in the main flow of the gospel narrative, but who play a really important part in this episode. So I'll read John chapter 19 verses 38 to 42. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission. So he came and took away his body. Nicodemus also, who earlier had come to Jesus by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen cloths with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had yet been laid. So because of the Jewish day of preparation, since the tomb was close at hand, they laid Jesus there. So this short episode, clearly in between the crucifixion and the resurrection, which it's in the main flow of the gospel narrative, isn't it? And of the seasons of our worship. There's this episode. Joseph of Arimathea, who's very much a member of the establishment, a secret disciple, if you like, of Jesus. But he wasn't amongst those who'd condemned Jesus. And Joseph of Arimathea, of course, is the subject of all sorts of myth and legend, particularly medieval stuff. We used to live in the south of England and often visited Glastonbury, and of course we'll all be aware of the sort of the stories, if you like, about Joseph coming to these shores, and even as these things go, with a young Jesus, and did those feats in ancient time, etc., etc. So this figure, Joseph of Arimathea, so much mystery, a lot of myth and legend, of course. It's nothing to do with biblical accounts, the gospel, but which give the figure of Joseph of Arimathea some sense of mystique, enigma. He plays a really important part in this episode, doesn't he, Joseph of Arimathea? He took a risk potentially, didn't he? I guess in asking Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, because I suppose under in the context under Roman rule, crucified victims would very often be left hanging on the cross. So Joseph, although he'd probably hidden his faith in Jesus for fear of the Jews, perhaps showed some bravery in asking Pilate for permission to take away the body. And Nicodemus, another figure who perhaps appears on the fringes and in the shades of things, secretly and under the cover of night. Interesting. Very often, I suppose, we think of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus. Those are the main flow of the gospel narrative, aren't they? And of our sort of the seasons of our worship. And yet here we are, this little passage, which is so important, isn't it, about what happened to Jesus' body. Indeed, there might be some speculation that the tomb in which they laid Jesus' body was a tomb which Joseph had set aside for himself. It was owned perhaps by Joseph of Arimathea. So, yes, the passage always strikes me as like being one of those scenes in a play where everything's dark and critical things are happening, but somehow in the shadows. The burial of Jesus, John's Gospel. Thank you.